Well, we're in the second week of a series on lessons from A Course in Miracles. And as I started last week to say, the Course in Miracles has really come to fall into much more harmony with unity. At one time, it was considered to be sort of a fringe teaching that was not accepted. But as people got to know more about A Course in Miracles and began to compare it with the essential teachings of unity, it was seen to be very compatible. And so I mentioned last week, I'll mention again, there's a book in our bookstore that's recently came out called Unity in A Course in Miracles, which does a really great job of sort of the parallel teachings of the unity right next to the teachings from the Course, and showing how the essential non-dual teachings of unity and the non-dual teachings of A Course in Miracles are very, very similar, and so they're not strange bedfellows, to be together. This is an introduction to A Course in Miracles, so if you're not one to read a 1,200-page volume, which is the actual book, this is 25 pages, and it'll give you the essence of it. In large part, that's what I'm doing over this series here. But if you want to take something home that's not as discombobulated as my messages, for example, this little book would be handy for that. And then this one I didn't mention last week. This is called The Disappearance of the Universe. And it's a book by Gary Renard. And I recommend this book. It's pretty intimidating. It's 400 pages, but it's all done in conversation. So it's very easy to read, and it really will help you understand what the Course is saying in plain language. And so I highly commend it to you, because the Course can be a little bit difficult. It's written in sort of a formal language. Some people find it extraordinarily beautiful and just enjoy that, and then other people find it a little bit obtuse, and so they need help, like me. So I really enjoyed Disappearance of the Universe. So that's that. Any questions? Okay. People ask, what is A Course in Miracles? And so many things have been said about it, which are all really true. So let me give you some of them. So some say it's a religion, but that's probably the least accurate. It's not really a religion. But some say it's a philosophy, and it is, in a sense, but more than a philosophy. It's a psycho-spiritual mind training. That's fairly accurate. That's true. It's Christian. Well, it has Christian terminology and it has Christian relationships, but it's not entirely Christian in the sense that how it understands the doctrine. It's Eastern, yes, and it's mystical, yes. So any questions? Pretty much cover it? Yeah. Well, what I like to say about it is it's a modern-day interpretation of the teachings of Jesus. And so when Jesus, of course, we don't know what he really said, and those people who think that everything he said was included in the Bible, that's probably not true. There was probably much more. But what he says, what Jesus being the author of A Course in Miracles says, is that, I wanted to straighten a few things out. And I wanted you to come to understand, what my true teachings are. And so, and that's the context in which most people who are devotees of A Course in Miracles read it, as an understanding of these pure teachings, which are not wrapped around any particular religion or doctrine. So in that way, it can be very illuminating to even taking some of the scriptural readings, some of the words that were attributed to Jesus in the Bible, that he reinterprets in a way that is completely illuminating to this idea that the Spirit of God, resides within us, which is what we believe in unity. So last week, just to kind of run over a little bit of what we said, the basic story that the Course in Miracles tells and illuminates is that we've forgotten who we are. We have forgotten our true nature. And we feel that we're separate from God, we're separate from each other, and we live out of this sense of identity, which is an illusion. The Course calls it an illusion. It's a false reality, because we were created in the image and likeness of God, and so how else could we be anything other than divine? But we have lost that memory. We have lost that understanding, that knowing, and so we operate from the sense of separation from all that God is. And that's, the Course says, and that's why we suffer. That's why we suffer. And that the truth is that heaven is where we already live and move and have our being. And it's not a place or a condition even. It's our awareness of perfect oneness. In fact, the Course says heaven is the awareness of our perfect oneness. And when we're in that state, we're in heaven. It's not a place that we have to go. There's no waiting. It's not a reward for a life well lived. It's a realization for a life truly understood. It's a recognition that is a journey without distance. It's some place that we can fall back into the same way you could fall back into a reality when you were stuck in a dream. And to wake up, basically, is what the Course says. The Course could be described in 3 words. Wake up. That's 2 words, but add your name to that, and there you go, 3. Wake up. Wake up. Been sleeping. And so that the whole idea is that we have fallen asleep. We have dreamed ourselves apart from God, and when we did that, and of course. You have to be kind of careful when you said this because a lot of people take things literally. All of this was done in the mind. So anything I say to you didn't really happen. That's why it's an illusion. That's why it's a dream. But the dream, how many of you, well, of course, we've all had a dream where in the context of the dream, when we're in the dream, didn't it all feel real? Yeah, and the colors were real, and the people were real, and the events were real. And if it was a hard dream, it was a nightmare of some kind, you would actually wake up with the physical residue of that experience. Your heart could be pounding, and you could be very excited or very sad. And actually, if you dream that something great has been taken from you, you can wake up crying. All of that's happening because the dream reality seems very real. And so the Course says we have basically done the same thing. We have fallen asleep. We have dreamt ourselves apart from God, and the only way we could do that and make that a reality is to create a world of separation, and a world of 7 billion people, and that's what we're left with, and the Course would call us back to our original knowing that we are one. We are one with each other. We are one with God. We are one with love. We are one with life. And that all appearances of separation are just, they're illusory, and they take us from the peace of mind that is our true inheritance from God. So that's what the Course teaches, and it takes a lot of lessons for us to wake up. Have we noticed that? It has 365 lessons, 1 for every day of the year. And so it begins by just sort of unpacking what we have believed, and begins sort of we need to sort of subtract what we know that isn't so that we can begin to have space in us to understand what is the truth. And so the Course in Miracles would begin to chip away at our perceptions, and the Course does make a distinction, and I talked about this last week, between knowledge and perception. Knowledge is what's real, and perception is the unreal. So knowledge is truth, unalterable, eternal, unambiguous, applies to everything that God created, and only what He created is real. Perception, on the other hand, is the world of time, of change, of beginnings and endings, entirely based upon interpretation, not on facts. It's the world of birth and death, founded on the belief in scarcity, loss, separation, and death. It's learned rather than given. See, what's given to us is our true nature. And then we added on this perceptual bias that has believing that we're separate from each other. One of my favorite lines from the Course, it's actually in the introduction, and it's this. It says, the little I, it talks about the little I, that's the capital I, but it's not the divine I. The little I, this would be the ego self, seeks to enhance itself by external approval, external possessions, and external love. The self, the capital S self, the God created, needs nothing. It is forever complete, safe, loved, and loving. It seeks to share rather than to get, to extend rather than to project. It has no needs and wants to join with others out of their mutual awareness of abundance. So this is the contrast between, the big me and the little me, The big me has a sense of, I have all that I need. And when I'm in that state, I feel abundant, I feel generous, I feel loving, I feel like I'm established in myself, and I'm a wonderful person to be around. You like me when I'm in my big me. And when I'm in my little me, there's a sense of there's something missing, there's something lacking, there's a yearning for something that I want to seek, in order to, the illusion being that if I had that person, place, thing, whatever it is, the situation or circumstance, that I would feel a sense of being okay. And so I'm sort of scrapping in the world, trying to figure out what that is that I could acquire, possess, have, that would then give me that sense of well-being. And of course, the Miracle says that's insanity. It's insanity, because the part of you that has created the notion that there's something missing in you will perpetuate that notion forever. I mean, it's based on the very notion that you're incomplete. So how could something that its very identity is rooted in understanding itself as being partial or incomplete ever find completeness? What would happen, for example, if that which was based on incompleteness ever approached the point of completeness? What would happen? Could it continue to exist? No, right? Is this too far out there for you guys? Well, think about it. If incompleteness is its nature, if it started approaching completeness, what would it do in order to survive? Go find something else that was missing, right? Okay, so this is kind of metaphysical stuff, but it's important, because the reason we need to know that is that if we're on this path and we discover that we're becoming more sensitive, more aware of our wholeness, which is our completeness, then what's going to likely happen is that part of us that's never really satisfied is going to be under threat. You know that? It's going to be under threat. It's going to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm melting. It's like, I'm melting. And so if that's what's going on, then we have to hail that as progress on our spiritual path, and see that as actually what we've come. The Apostle Paul said, I die daily. I die daily. And that, of course, he wasn't talking about his physical self dying daily, but it was the part of him that felt separate. And that part of us that feels separate from God, from life, from love, has come to die. It's come to die. The purpose of our life is to return to our oneness with God. And the part of us that feels constantly separate from God will be threatened by that. And that's why oftentimes we have these difficult experiences on the spiritual path, because something comes up and it doesn't want to let go. It could be an identity. I'm identified with a job, or I'm identified with a person in my life, or I'm identified with how I look, or my age, or my body, and all those things that we have. And when those are our identifications, and we're on the spiritual path, and we're trying to come into our wholeness, we're trying to come into the sense of, I'm a metaphysical, spiritual being, then all those things that are concrete, all those things that are rooted in our identity and form, oftentimes come under attack. Just like the butterfly story, where the caterpillar begins to dissolve out of this impulse for it to become liberated from its lesser capacity. Its potential is calling it to be more. And there's a dying off process. There's a letting go process that's involved there. So, Penny, I didn't tell you this, but I have a little video clip on our PowerPoint today that I wanted to show. It's not there yet, but I just want to let you know, because I realize I haven't told you already. It's coming up. I just didn't want you to leave the building or anything. So, okay. So, the Course says this, when you're caught up in this world, which we were just talking about, this illusory world, you're caught in a dream. And you cannot escape from the dream, or this illusion, whatever you want to call it, without help. So the Course of Miracles says that God is, in its continual compassion to bring us back into this experience of oneness, provides the answer. So when we fell asleep and dreamed ourselves apart from God, in that same instant, there was an answer given. And the answer given was what the Course calls the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is that which mediates between the world that we live in, the world that we think we live in, a world of separation and form, to heaven, to the world where there is no separation. And even though the Holy Spirit does not acknowledge the reality of this world, it understands that we do. And therefore will mediate us and to help us wake up from this illusory sense of this world and to come back into knowing ourselves, back into heaven. And so that becomes the practice of A Course in Miracles, where one prays for the recognition of that which it cannot see with its own physical eyes, because we are, like Jesus said, we judge by appearances. But what we want to do is we want to be able to see the bigger picture. We want to be able to see that we are spiritual beings. We want to have our hearts opened. We want to have a reality that is rooted in truth, not just rooted in this notion of time and space and form. So the Holy Spirit becomes that which comes to our assistant to wake us up. And he can do this because, while on the one hand he knows the truth, on the other hand he recognizes our illusions, but without believing in them. And it's the Holy Spirit to help us escape from the dream by teaching us how to reverse our thinking and unlearn our mistakes. And our mistakes are just mistakes in perception. So we would be free. We would be free, and we would, Jesus said, the truth will make you free. The truth will set you free. What was he talking about? He was saying that we would no longer feel the sense of fear and bondage that we do in this world. Because most of us wake up in the morning and unless we're fully enlightened, there's some sense of apprehension, like how are you going to get through the day, and what are you going to do this, and you're concerned about the future, and you're regretting the past, and all of those things, have us in an anxious state of mind. But to be truly free would be for us to break free of this notion of being separate from our wholeness. So there's a few quotes that I want to share with you from A Course. It says, you must choose between total freedom and total bondage. The first step towards freedom involves a sorting out of the false from the true. Freedom from illusions lies only in not believing them. Freedom from illusions is not believing in them, so it's about suspending our belief. So I want to share with you this video clip, and I'll set it up and then we'll play it. And so I was wondering, what is it in a contemporary movie, and this movie is a little bit older, but that sort of demonstrates this idea that we can be free, and how seduced we can be into thinking that this is the only world there is. And so this is the Truman Show. Some of you, how many of you ever saw the Truman Show? Some of you have. So the premise of the Truman Show is that it's the ultimate reality TV, in which this producer gets this idea of filming this man from the time he's born all the way through his life, and everyone at home is watching his life, unfold from the time he gets up in the morning and has breakfast and goes off and does his thing. But they've put him in this world that's just a giant stage, a big dome, yeah. And so it's all happening inside this, but he doesn't know that. He thinks that he's just living his life, and there's all the actors in his world. All the people in his world are actors, and they're all playing the part, see? And he's thinking, but as time goes on, see if you can relate to this, as time goes on, he becomes suspicious. There's something not right here, or there's got to be more. There seems to be, he's beginning to feel, the tension of there's some boundaries to his experience, and his intuition is that there's more than this. And so he begins to go off to explore in this world. And there's a scene where he goes off into a sailboat, and he's trying to go to the end of the earth, like any explorer does. What's at the end of the horizon? What's on the other side of the horizon? And the producer of the show is very concerned about him, reaching the end of this false world, and then the whole gig would be up. So he brings thunderstorms down on top of him, trying to collapse the boat so that he'll turn back, and he doesn't. And the very last scene in the movie, and that's what you're going to see. Of course, I've completely spoiled this movie for all of you who haven't seen it. I apologize, but it's all for the sake of, it's God's will that I do this. So there you go. Cheap shot for God, I'm sorry. So the scene here is when he finally gets to the end, and there's a door. And he's in the tension between whether he goes out and stays in, and the voice, who was this creator of the show, is speaking to him and trying to convince him not to go, not to leave. Let's watch.
Truman. You can speak. I can hear you. Who are you? I am the creator of a television show that gives hope and joy and inspiration to millions. Then who am I? You're the star. Was nothing real? You were real. That's what made you so good to watch. Listen to me, Truman. There's no more truth out there than there is in the world I created for you. Same lies, the same deceit. But in my world, you have nothing to fear. I know you better than you know yourself.
You never had a camera in my head.
You're afraid. That's why you can't leave. It's okay, Truman. I understand. I have been watching you your whole life. I was watching when you were born. I was watching when you took your first step. I watched you on your first day of school. The episode when you lost your first tooth. You can't leave, Truman.
Please, God.
You belong here
You can do it.
with me. Talk to me. Say something.
Well, say something, goddammit. You're on television. You're live to the whole world.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Yeah.
So that voice that we have in our head, it can be so kindly, and it can be telling us that, we're not going to be okay if we have this expanded, if we go through that window, that we're all being called to this bigger life. And what's so perfect about this scene is that the world that he's created is a finite world, yeah? And that doorway, all you just see is black, which just represents that, he's going into this infinite space. And think about it, how can you ever find infinity in a finite world? And if we are limiting ourselves to the appearance of this life, then we are limiting ourselves from going into the infinite realm where we came from. He came from the infinite and then was put into a finite world. And the day came when his impulse to want to return to his infinite nature was greater than the voice in his head that says, stay here and I'll protect you. But the kind of protection that the ego offers is a protection of contraction, of limitation. It's based on fear, it's based on lack, it's based on not enough. And when we're tired of that, when we realize that who we have come here to be is so much greater than that story, that set has become too small for us, that we're ready to just explore and go out and experience the fullness of our nature and our connection with the infinite, then we can overcome that. And that's what our work is. A Course in Miracles says, this is how I will help you. Every day I will help you wrestle with that tension between, the feeling small and contracted and it being a separate self and returning to your true expanded infinite nature. And that's what our spiritual practices that really help us can do for us, is every day they wake us up. Every day they reveal more of the truth and show the falseness of this promise of the ego mind. So does that make sense to you? For now, that's what we got. And we'll have 2 more Sundays to unpack some more. The biggest thing that Course in Miracles talks about is, the reason it's called miracles, I sort of skipped over that today, is it's not what we would normally think of as a miracle, because in the normally understanding of the word miracle, we think of producing some supernatural physical occurrence in life, or like raising the dead, for example, which I'm not doing that these days. I gave that up. It'd be good TV though. But sooner or later we realize that a miracle is not an outer reversal of physical laws, but an inner shift in perception. And so that's this idea of shifting from feeling separate from life to feeling connected with all of life. That's the shift in perception. That's the miracle. And that's the only really miracle that's going to transform your life. All those other miracles are just one more way of modulations of form, but they don't change the inner heart. They don't change the soul. So we're here to have a shift in perception, and we have a shift in perception, then we become aware of the infinite nature, the greater love and life that we're made of. So that's all for today, and next week we'll take on the next piece. So blessings. Thank you.